Fala pessoal, tudo beleza? No vídeo passado nós falamos sobre Tides of Annihilation. Trouxemos aqui uma gameplay que foi divulgada e agora o canal da IGN também postou uma gameplay que eles jogaram. E além disso eles explicaram várias coisas pra gente. Vamos dar uma olhada nesse vídeo, vamos reagir a esse vídeo hoje. E mais, a gente falou no vídeo passado sobre a falta de legendas em português. Parece que temos novidades sobre isso também. Acompanhe todas essas novidades neste vídeo. Então vamos lá pessoal, dá uma olhada aqui, vamos reagir a esse vídeo. Vamos ver o que eles vão falar pra gente sobre o que tem nesse jogo, né? Vamos dar uma olhadinha. Então, já começa aquela cena de ação frenética, né?
In Tides of Annihilation, it isn't just London Bridge that's falling down. It's the entire city that's been razed to ruins by an unknown presence invading from
Então
the
realmente o
mysterious
jogo vai se passar em Londres.
And you're the only human survivor left to stop it. This action-adventure, heavily inspired by Arthurian legend, made a serious splash when it was announced early last year. But I was initially concerned that the fast-paced slash-em-up from first-time developer Eclipse Glow Games may have been all style over substance. However, after spending roughly 2 hours of hands-on time with a preview build at a recent event, I'm happy to say that Tides of Annihilation feels just as exhilarating to play as it is utterly dazzling to watch.
Caraca, esse boss aí é muito incrível. Mordred.
While previous Tides of Annihilation trailers have depicted a broken down Big Ben and lopsided London Eye, during my hands-on demo my investigations into its blight-riddled version of Old Blighty were restricted to a ruptured reworking of the British Museum. Referred to here as the Great Russell Museum, presumably for boring legal reasons, this iconic piece of architecture has been torn asunder. Buckled...
Interessante, eles pegaram então o Museu Britânico e tiveram que trocar o nome no jogo, né? Agora eu tava querendo saber se a planta do museu no jogo é igual à planta do museu real, né?
It feels a bit like you hopped on the tube at Waterloo Station but accidentally got off somewhere in Elden Ring's lands between. This section is apparently several hours into the adventure, so the only context I had for why protagonist Gwendolyn had arrived inside the museum's artifact-lined walls was that she was in search of a shard of the Holy Grail.
The Grail shard is in there.
Assisting in her...
Interessante. A gente aqui tem duas informações interessantes. A gente vai ter a questão do Santo Graal envolvido no jogo, né? Parece que o Santo Graal tinha envolvimento nas lendas do Rei Arthur também, né? Me lembra isso, é isso mesmo. E outra questão que ele falou interessante aqui é que não colocaram o início do jogo para eles jogarem, né? Botaram uma parte mais pro meio ali, provavelmente para eles não tomarem spoiler do que acontece no início do jogo,
a young
do que
fairy
leva
with
ao
the
mundo
ability
estar
to
nesse
transform
tipo de
into a
situação
bird.
aqui.
She basically served as a shape-shifting signpost pointing to the next main
a mina que se transforma em pássaro,
gliding away to perch on a piece of scenery in order to subtly indicate the way forward.
I wish I had wings.
But I'm told by the development team that she's an extremely important character to Tides of Annihilation's story.
E ela... Caraca, gente, dá uma olhada nessa skin. Olha esse traje. Cara, tá incrível esse jogo. Provavelmente a gente vai ter que coletar vários trajes, né, durante o jogo.
You're right. Thank goodness.
I also met this bizarre pair of snake-like creatures with hands for heads that seemed like they'd slithered straight out of Jim Henson's Labyrinth.
We're helping hands.
But almost everyone else I encountered was desperately trying to kill me. Thankfully, Gwendolyn is supremely well equipped to conquer any contenders that stand in her way. In addition to a fairly standard suite of sword slashes, dodges, and parries, Gwendolyn has a pair of spectral knights that can be triggered with a well-timed button press to beam in out of the ether with a series of strikes that powerfully punctuate each of her attacks.
Será que são os cavaleiros da Tábua Redonda, das lendas do Rei Arthur? Provavelmente, né?
Combos. Initially, my use of these round table knights was less Camelot and more Spam-a-lot, as I gleefully button-mashed my way through the less intimidating hordes that greeted me after my arrival at the museum. But by the time I found myself being tested by the demo's first boss, I'd really started to grasp the subtleties of Tides of Annihilation's setup.
Pô,
you can modify Gwendolyn's strikes by holding a shoulder button to uppercut enemies and juggle them in the air. Perform charged attacks to deal heavy damage.
Bastante coisa, né?
Trigger devastating execution moves once you've lowered an enemy's stagger meter.
Vamos ter aquela mecânica de atordoamento, então.
You can unleash a spectacular ultimate skill attack that rains down electrical bolts that pulverize everyone in
E aí,
their
modo
path.
especial, né? Modo especial.
Everything feels supremely responsive to pull off, and the silky smooth animations keep it all flowing fluidly from one combo to the next.
Cara, realmente as
You can
animações são
also
muito
get
fluidas.
strategic in terms of which knights you want to employ. Gwendolyn can have 2 pairs of steel-covered soldiers to choose from at any one time, mapped to the left and right buttons of the D-pad so you can switch between them on the fly.
Pô, parece que vai rolar uma certa...
As your stable of spectral sidekicks grows by unlocking new knights from defeating certain sub-bosses, you have the freedom to mix and match these pairs in order to create a loadout that best suits your personal playstyle. You might want to pair the short-range specialties of the scythe-wielding Bedivere with Gawain's ability to teleport straight to targets, for example.
Pô, então, tipo assim, a gente vai ter que usar uma certa estratégia, né? Qual o cavaleiro que a gente vai usar em cada situação, ver qual é a situação, ver qual é o poder de cada cavaleiro que melhor se adequa à situação. E a gente vai ter que ir desbloqueando eles. Será que a gente vai desbloqueando eles numa árvore de habilidades ou a gente vai ter que ir encontrando
Or perhaps you'd prefer
itens
to
e
partner the
ganhando eles?
guard-breaking attacks of Palamedes
Ou até mesmo cumprindo missões, né? E vai
with Kay's
ganhando
ability
os
to
cavaleiros.
temporarily freeze opponents and buy you some breathing space during a battle.
É, ela já citou que esse aqui tem a habilidade de congelar o tempo, né?
There were 5 knights available in my demo, but the developers told me that was just a small sample of the roster that will be available in the
Ele jogou com
finished
5
game.
cavaleiros.
And I'm excited to see how creative the combat can become as Gwendolyn's gaggle of guardians grows. Although it might sound like quite a
Realmente,
lot
isso aí
to
dá muita
manage,
criatividade
Tides of
pro combate,
Annihilation's
essas várias
greatest magic trick
possibilidades.
is that it puts you in charge of this spectral horde of King Arthur's cronies without ever bogging down a fight with any form of fiddly micromanagement. Its combat is consistently up-tempo, never sacrificing any speed in favor of strategic flexibility. Getting your combinations of
mesmo,
knights
pelo que ele
right
falou aí.
and efficiently employing their support skills is crucial in order to overcome Tides of Annihilation's beefier boss encounters. And there were 2 main story villains to overcome in my demo. After battling my way to the museum's Egyptian
velho,
wing,
esse traje tá
I was
muito
suddenly
maneiro.
teleported into a sand-swept desert realm and pitted head-to-head with the polearm-toting Anubis, who unleashed devastating
Anubis.
tornado attacks upon a perilous
Deus
pair of
egípcio.
platforms that made up a giant set of scales. Later on, I faced off against the surprisingly nimble Mordred inside the museum's library in an extremely cinematic multi-phase fight. Mordred filled me with more dread when she eventually emerged from the earth atop a dragon big enough to intimidate a Targaryen, forcing me to take evasive measures as she swooped down and engulfed the combat arena in purple flames.
Caraca, parece ser uma outra fase esse
Both of these
boss aí
battles
também tem uma
absolutely
outra
pop
fase
with
pra
visual
lutar com ele.
flair and challenged me to continually mix up my
A gente vai
approach
pra
as
outro
each boss
cenário e ele tá
intensified
montado
their
num dragão,
assaults.
mano.
Gwendolyn's armor-suited allies aren't just handy friends to have in battle. A number of their unique abilities can also be employed while exploring the world around her.
Speaking of which, here comes practice.
Ah, ela tem
The
habilidade
archer
para
boars
exploração
can be
também.
used to fire rope arrows in order
Isso aí
to
a gente
create
viu no
new
outro vídeo,
paths
né?
with zip lines.
Ela usou o arco ali, o poder provavelmente algum
Or to fire a
cavaleiro
cleaving
também.
bolt to tear through ropes that may be
Esticar uma corda
suspending
pra ela
treasure chests
atravessar.
from a ceiling.
Exactly what I need.
Meanwhile, the burly Palamedes has more useful functions than a smartwatch, since he can punch through cracked walls or lift heavy doors to open up hidden rooms,
Caramba.
as well as drag stone columns or raise heavy crates to create a platform towards objects
Cara,
that
isso
are
aí me
otherwise
lembra
out of
muito
reach.
Guardiões
The
da Galáxia.
implication is that each spectral knight that Gwendolyn
No Guardiões da Galáxia, a gente vai usando os guardiões, né? Vai dando comando pros guardiões fazerem certas atividades pra gente. Cada um na sua área. Geralmente o Drax fazia esses serviços de pesado, né? Ter que arrastar coisa, bater em parede, esse tipo de coisa. É o Drax que faz lá no jogo dos Guardiões da Galáxia.
recruits to her cause will open up new methods for navigating Tides of Annihilation's environments, potentially leading to a Metroidvania-style structure where you're consistently given reasons to revisit earlier areas in order to unlock secrets that were previously inaccessible.
Ah, legal. Provavelmente, quando a gente for pegando os
Exploring
cavaleiros,
off
eles vão dando possibilidade da gente voltar em áreas que a gente não acessava antigamente. Isso aí é um tipo de estilo de Metroidvania, né? Eles adotaram isso para esse jogo também.
Gwendolyn's Path of Destruction also rewards you with optional combat challenges and even additional boss fights. When I wandered into the museum's Chinese gallery, I got a cryptic clue from an NPC about a cursed fiend prowling the building's halls.
Must be a nasty sort for you to single him out.
And by tracking him down, I was eventually drawn into a fierce
Esse é
battle
aquele
against
boss
a
maneirão,
samurai surging
samurai.
with electricity.
Tinha duas fases de combate com ele. Na primeira ele é um samurai e na segunda ele vira um yokai.
Later on, after I'd shifted into the
Cara, olha essa imagem, mano. Bela imagem.
desert realm, I explored the sand surrounding the museum only to be set upon by a particularly tough tormentor who was able to tear portals through time and space in order to perform devastating darting attacks that ambushed me from opposing sides of the arena. Elsewhere, there was the odd environmental puzzle to pause and ponder over, including a pretty novel brain teaser that involved
legal.
manipulating the pieces on a giant double-sided chess set. Aside from being
Então a gente viu que aí tem bastante mecânica diferente no jogo, né? Tanto o combate é bem variado, tem muita coisa para fazer em combate diferente, quanto a exploração, a gente viu que dá para usar bastante coisa para explorar o cenário, usar arco, usar os cavaleiros. E agora a gente viu que também vai ter bastante puzzles para resolver, né?
fun in their own right, completing these optional puzzle and combat-oriented challenges earns Gwendolyn everything from more damaging swords to sturdier sets of armor.
Ah, a gente vai ganhando
As well as
itens e
special badges
armaduras
that can be
se
equipped to grant
resolver
her
os
additional
puzzles.
buffs. When I was felled during a gravity-defying platforming section right at the climax of the Mordred encounter, I was certainly glad that I'd equipped the badge that brought Gwendolyn back to life with half her health, so that I was able to
Ih,
keep
vou
calm
pegar
and
esse
carry on
emblema
with
aí,
the
cara.
rest
Tem
of the
que...
fight.
Vou ter que achar esse item aí enquanto tu tá jogando.
While Gwendolyn's suite of controls felt supremely responsive and flexible for the most part, I did sense some minor restrictions with her movement that I hope are remedied ahead of Tides of Annihilation's eventual release. Namely, her sprinting speed feels in need of a substantial boost, since
Então
shifting
já tá
from a
falando
walk
de
to a
problema
run
aí,
only
né?
feels like a fairly modest change in pace. Similarly, her agility in the air appears in need of some tweaks, because at present she's a bit too beholden to the bounds of gravity. I wouldn't say that Gwendolyn even has a double jump, it's more like a 1.5 jump at best. And that made some platforming sections feel ever so slightly stiff as a result. However, my biggest complaint after my short
Então ele cita dois problemas aí que ele percebeu. A corrida, né? E não tem tanta diferença da corrida mais rápida com aquele trote. E também a questão do pulo duplo, que não chega a ser um pulo duplo. Ele diz que é mais parecido com um pulo e meio.
time with Tides of Annihilation is that I honestly wish it had lasted for longer. And that can only be a good sign. Especially since so many of the awesome encounters that have been teased in previous trailers, including the looming Shadow of the Colossus-inspired giant knights that double as both intense platforming challenges and breathtaking boss fights, were completely absent from this hands-on build. Indeed, there's clearly still much to learn about this alluring action-adventure that's currently in development for PC, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S, including its release date. It's yet to be officially announced, and if I had to guess, I wouldn't expect it before mid-2027 at the earliest. But if this fantastic first taste is anything to go by, then Tides of Annihilation seems likely to grip me harder than a knight trying to pull a sword from a stone.
Essa sequência, cara.
For more IGN previews,
Então é isso aí, pessoal. Esse aí foi o vídeo que a IGN postou. Eles jogaram e tiveram esse tipo de impressão, trouxeram essas novidades pra gente aí. E por falar em novidades, aí eu citei no início do vídeo que a gente tinha novas informações sobre as legendas em português. Essa semana tivemos notícias que as legendas em português estarão presentes já no lançamento do jogo. Então o idioma português foi adicionado ao jogo aí, o que é uma ótima notícia pra gente, né? E vai melhorar bastante a experiência da gente aqui no Brasil pra jogar essa maravilha aí, dessa obra de arte que é esse jogo. Beleza, galera? Então vamos aguardar o lançamento aí. Não sabemos ainda a data de lançamento. Estava previsto para 2026, mas até agora não divulgaram nada de data. Ansioso para comprar a mídia física dele. Tomara que venha, que não botem a porcaria de um código dentro da caixa. E é isso aí, galera. Se inscrevam no canal, curte, comenta, compartilha, mande o vídeo para os seus amigos e nos vemos em breve. Até mais!